Hi, my name is John Pajaro, a Bachelor of Elementary Education of Southern Capital Colleges. So this video will talk about the special and inclusive education. So we're going to discuss about the accommodation and curricular modification. So as we know that students with disabilities and additional needs who are studying in inclusive general education classroom may need accommodation in the form of instructional support and other supplementary services. Others who needs the more intensive support are provided by the curricular modification. So now let's talk about first the accommodation. So based on the definition, accommodation are support provided to student to help gain full access to class content and instruction without altering the curricular standard and competencies expected that know demonstrate accurately what they know. So when accommodation are provided in a general education classroom for children with disabilities, barriers are removed from accessing education. As a result, children can work around the effect of their disabilities. So example of accommodation are altering instrument, toys, or materials, changing the room during specific activities, providing the time extension or allowance for tests, and changing response formats and worksheets. So those are the example of accommodation. So why it is important to have accommodation, or why that we need to accommodate for those people who have the needs of their accommodations. Accommodation will be provided both during assessment and instruction, depending on the learning profile and needs of the children, and may vary in terms of presentation, response, setting, and scheduling by BED 2010. And now we're going to talk about presentation accommodation. So children with disabilities may need special presentation formats, especially those with sensory impairment, so they can learn the same content alongside typically developing peers. So we have here learning needs and example of accommodation. First, we have the visual support. So example of this is minimize visual distraction, visual chaos. For example, is the use color code text or highlighting, use of larger print materials. For example, the font size or the illustration must be made for this that the other or the student can easily look upon the presentation easily. There can be something they will say, oh mom, the font size is so small, I can see here from my seat. So that's it. We should apply that in having the special support from the students. And also use of sign language. Of course, as we educator, we are not going to deny to have challenges in life that we will facing for that kind of way, which is we need to learn about sign language, so that in terms of someone cannot understand or cannot talk, we can use the sign language so that they can understand. And also videos with closed captioning. So we present videos, we make sure that have a caption so that the student can easily see or can have their reading skills. And also we have auditory and comprehension support. For example, if this is read aloud by a peer. So of course, when we speak, we should be clearly loud, not like the first row can only hear your voice, but also those students in the back side or the other side, or those rows in the last side. And also audio books, digital text that reads aloud or gives definition of words, text-to-speech software, advanced organizer or story guide, and also highlighting or color coding. And last, we have listening and focusing. So, of course, we have example is advanced organizer. So, we should always look upon those organizer that helps the student to support their learning. We should represent a organizer so that they can also have take time to look upon it. So, that's it. And also, explicit verbal or visual chaos like physical prompts, and also repeat, clarify direction and important information, and also note taking support and copy of direction. So we future teacher pala. So we also need to give the proper instruction to our students so that they can understand it properly, or we take note or we write it in one paper. We give the paper to them so that they can have the copy, and also, and through that when they go home they can give to their parents and say, oh my teacher have something to give us. So at least if the as we teacher, we give them the note, and then after that when they go to their house they give to their parents, so at least their parents will know or have the awareness of what the note about or what are happening about. So, and next, we have the response accommodation. So response accommodation allows students with disabilities and additional needs a variety of ways to complete assignments, written tasks, performance tasks, and other activities. So providing such instructional and assessment support allows them to access the same learning experience as other students in a general education classroom. So I have here the summary example of response accommodation for students with disabilities and additional needs. So now we have the learning needs, an example of response accommodation. So first, low about learning needs is writing difficulty. For example, error in spacing, visual perceptual or spatial orientation, and illegible handwriting. So example of this is different size, diameter of pencil, marker or crayon, pencil or pen grip, rectangular or purse shape, scribe to record dictated responses, finger spacer, hand writing template or guide to the student desk, visual chaos in paper and different types and sizes of paper. So for this, we a future teacher gives the guide for the learning so that they can learn in the proper way. We should accommodate them by this need. So of course, in case of that, when the learners have difficulty in writing, we give them the pattern, we give them the printed materials of letters, and let them guide them to the proper way of how to write. And also next we have written expression difficulty. So for example, if this is electronic dictionary with spell check, so one of that, we should be flexible of having different dictionary with spell check, like for those dictionary where can have the proper pronunciation, and also online dictionary, word processor with spelling and grammar check, writing cards, list of sight words, and writing templates, outline, and graphic as an organizer. And lastly, we have math difficulty. So of course, for example of this is calculator, concrete models and manipulatives, visual representation, problem-solving guides, graphic organizer, and special paper or graphing paper for computations. Of course, we let the student learn about the calculator and how calculator functions, and also those manipulatives and visual presentations, so that the learner can have the guides for them to learn. And now let's proceed to the setting accommodation. So changes in the location or condition of educational setting or environment may be necessary for students who need support in terms of behavior, attention, and organization of space and materials. Accommodation in a setting may allow a child who gets easily distracted to work in a quiet corner of the classroom in his own study corral so that he will not be sidetracked by environmental stimuli, or a child who is still unable to read fluently may be allowed to take a silent reading comprehension test in another room with a supervising adult just so she or he could hear her or himself read aloud, which help her or his better understanding the story. So of course the setting accommodation should be fit for the learners, or we should include about the perspective of the personality of a person or the learners who need the support of setting accommodation. Like, we're not thinking just, oh, we should stay here all, nothing will be go other, so that's not good. So we should consider the needs of learners, because there are some, like what I read, there are some students who need a quiet place or a place where they are comfortable with. And the last accommodation, or the last, is the scheduling accommodation. Changing time allotment, schedule of tasks and assessment, and management of time, or some type of scheduling. So, students with slower ability in processing information and direction, as well as with focusing issue, may need this type of accommodation. So some example of accommodation, they can modify scheduling, or first, extending time for assignment and assessment. We, future teacher, will take in our mind that extending time for the assignment assessment are important, because not all the learners can easily done what we are giving to them. Next is providing breaks into between tasks. So of course we should not give the stress to the student that we say, oh, 5 minutes left, and then after 5 minutes pass your activity. No, we should give them break, like, okay, let's take a break for this for 5 minutes, and then after that continue what you're doing. So that's it. Third, we have providing a visual schedule or a checklist of individual responsibilities. So we assign our learners their checklist, individual responsibilities, their daily routine. So, and also we have providing predictable routines and procedures. So like what I said, the routine, the procedure, we always give them or provide them. And last, we have providing electronic devices with alarm and chaos. So of course we have the alarm or the clock that they can aware of what time is it, or they can say, or they can have it their self na, oh, it's time to take a water, or what else that can give them in providing electronic device with alarms. And so we are all done about the accommodation, and now let's proceed to the modification. Curricular modification are provided for students with significant or severe disabilities, where content expectations are altered and the performance outcome are changed in relation to what are expected of typically developing student of the same age. This is from December 2007. So when instruction and assessment are modified, a student with disability is still given the right to assess the same learning opportunities as other students in the general education class, but the tasks are more respectful and appropriate to the student abilities and needs. So when it comes to the curricular or the curriculum modification, we also think that we should give a special or those activities that those disability person can learn or can will know how to do it, because we're not just thinking that, or we are not going to reject or their needs about the education. So, curricular modification includes changes in instructional level, content, and performance criteria, as well as the breadth and depth of content being learned by students. Students with disabilities or additional needs may be given more or less or different content and resources material altogether. They may also be assessed during using different standards that are more appropriate to the student needs and abilities, such as being provided with fewer objectives, shorter lesson, or a smaller number of vocabulary words to learn. So of course, the disability person or those person have their special needs, we should not be comparing them to the other people without having disabilities, because the capabilities or the skills of the disabled person or those special person is not having the same level from the others. And now we have educational themes responsible for the instructional planning, or educational teams responsible for instructional planning may indicate curricular modification in the student and individual education plan, or the IEP. Such modifications are needed so that students also have access to the general education curriculum. Let us have a look at Carl's learning profile. Does he need accommodation or curricular modification? The text below presents the learning support Carl received in the context of his reading and spelling difficulties. So, Carl's learning support. Centered given the significant delays in Carl's reading and spelling performance, the team decided to provide him with different types of accommodation that adjusted the presentation of what is learned, how he responds, as well as the timing when tests are given. Ms. Santos prepared his reading materials and worksheet using a bigger font size and more space in between lines to allow him to point to words as he read, and to use a ruler so he would not lose his place while reading. In tests that require extensive writing, he is still made to write as much as he could, and after which he is asked to either give the verbal explanation to support what he was written, or he dictates his oral responses on a scribe. The teacher now considered the oral exam as the respectful and accommodation, as Carl is still able to assess the same learning standard and opportunities despite his difficulties. So, in the text, we can see that, so as we can see or hear the passage that given, Carl has received the accommodation that he needs, like the setting accommodation, the scheduling accommodation, the other accommodation which is offered to Carl, and also Miss Santos, his teacher, gave what the needs of Carl.